Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling something really crucial, decoding the language of professional value. We're looking specifically at job interviews.
Yeah, it's a big one.
It really is. We're not just talking about, basic resume tips here. This is a deep dive into the psychology of persuasion. Because, well, the source material we've looked at is super clear on this. Qualifications. They're just the minimum payment. They get you in the door, maybe.
Right, the price of entry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's the candidate who really masters the language of persuasion. That's the one who gets the offer.
That's absolutely spot on. Look, you might be incredibly qualified, top grades, 15 years experience, whatever. But if you can't actually articulate that value, if you can't tell a compelling story with evidence,
Then it's invisible.
it might as well not exist in that room. So our mission today is to give you the philosophy, the frameworks, and a really comprehensive vocabulary for 28 essential professional traits employers are listening for.
And the core idea, the thing you really need to get your head around right now, is that these traits, reliability, critical thinking, you name it, they're completely abstract.
Just words.
Just words, unless you prove them.
Yeah.
You need evidence, specific examples. If you can't back it up with a story, it's just noise. Pleasant, maybe, but totally worthless to the interviewer.
So we're aiming to shift you from just being qualified on paper to being truly persuasive in person, moving beyond those vague claims like, I'm a team player,
Ooh, yeah.
and equipping you with the tools to craft your experience into high-impact, memorable stories.
Okay, let's jump right in. The biggest mistake people make, the sources call it the show, don't tell imperative. What does that bad version, that red flag, actually sound like in an interview?
Well, it's relying on those abstract assertions we just mentioned. It's when a candidate says something like, oh, I'm a fantastic multitasker and a very reliable problem solver.
Right. Sounds okay on the surface.
But to an interviewer, it's just noise. It's totally unpersuasive because literally every applicant says the same thing. It's an empty cliche, basically.
So a claim is it's like a hypothesis.
Yeah.
Your job in that interview is to provide the proof, the data.
Exactly.
And the difference between a weak candidate and someone who really stands out often just boils down to this one thing, making that shift. The sources give a great comparison here.
Yeah, they do. If you just you say something general, like, I'm very detail-oriented and I have a strong track record of catching mistakes. Okay,
Right.
But who cares? It's forgettable.
Yeah.
But if you anchor that abstract idea, detail-oriented, to something concrete, something with impact, quantifiable, ideally.
Give us the example.
So instead, you say, in my last role, I was reviewing the quarterly financial report now. This was a document 2 senior managers had already signed off on, and I spotted a calculation error buried in the data set. It was pretty complex. Correcting that error before it went to the client prevented a specific, measurable $50,000 billing discrepancy.
Wow. Okay, that's night and day. You've gone from, I'm careful, to, I literally saved the company 50 grand.
That's the power. Quantification makes it real. It makes it credible.
But here's the challenge, right? How do you structure that proof? Every single time, especially when you're nervous, under pressure in that interview setting.
Yeah, you need a reliable structure, a kind of universal grammar for these stories. And that brings us to probably the most crucial framework in interviewing today, the STAR method.
STAR. Okay.
STAR is the foundation for answering basically any behavioral question. You know the ones. Tell me about a time when. They ask these because past behavior is the best predictor of future performance. It makes sense.
Let's talk about the weighting of STAR, though, because this is where people often go wrong. They spend too much time setting the scene, maybe.
Exactly. The structure is deliberately unbalanced, heavily unbalanced. So the first part, this situation, that's only about 20% of your answer.
20%, okay.
It's just concise stage setting, for example. Okay, so I was covering the manager shift at a small florist shop. It was peak wedding season, and a logistics mix-up meant 2 different wedding flower orders got double booked and sent to the wrong venues.
Quick. Clear. We know the basic problem. What's next?
Next is T task. Even shorter, just 10%. This is your specific goal or responsibility in that situation.
10%, okay.
So using the florist example, my task was critical. I had to fix the mistake immediately, make sure the right flowers got to the right weddings before the ceremony started, and, handle the inevitable customer upset.
Okay, so 20 plus 10, that's 30%. That leaves a whopping 70% for the rest. Let's get to the big one. Action.
Right. Action, action. This is the absolute core of your answer. It accounts for a massive 60% of your response.
60.
60%. This is where you shine. You have to use strong, active verbs, detail the specific steps you took in sequence. It's not just about what happened, it's about your thought process, your method, your decisions under pressure.
So it's not just I fixed it.
No, absolutely not. The interviewer isn't just looking for a happy ending, they're assessing the quality of your process. How did you approach the problem?
Okay, so back to the florist fiasco. The action needs to be detailed, right? Like
Exactly. First, I immediately pulled the order manifest to confirm the details. Then I called both customers directly, apologized profusely, owned the mistake, and reassured them I was sorting it out right now. Then, I literally jumped in my car, drove to venue A, quickly and calmly explained the situation to the coordinator there, swapped the flowers, then drove like mad, well, safely, 25 minutes to venue B to make the second exchange. I made sure both sets looked perfect and apologized again in person.
that level of detail shows initiative, communication, ownership.
Problem-solving, resourcefulness, yeah. It proves those traits through your actions. And then finally, the last 10% is our result.
Okay, the outcome.
Yeah. It needs to be clear, positive, and ideally quantifiable. Plus, and this is often missed, what did you learn from it?
The learning part. Important.
Crucial. So for the florist, both couples were actually so grateful for the quick fix and the honesty that they became repeat customers for other occasions. They've even recommended us to 3 new wedding clients since then. But the key thing I learned was that we lacked a check system for addresses on large orders. So I immediately implemented a mandatory 2-step verification checklist to prevent that specific error from ever happening again.
That last bit, the learning and the system improvement, that really seals it. Shows self-awareness, commitment to improvement. Okay, STAR. Makes sense. But the source material also mentioned an advanced version. SOAR.
Yeah, SR. Think of it as a specialized tool. It's particularly good for questions focusing on problem solving or resilience. It's basically STAR, but with one key addition. O for obstacles.
Obstacles, okay.
Before you get to the action, you explicitly detail the challenges, the constraints, the roadblocks you were up against. You might say, look, we had a critical system failure, a totally non-negotiable 24-hour deadline to fix it, and our operating budget for emergencies was basically 0.
So you're painting a picture of the difficulty before you explain how you overcame it. It's like showing the size of the mountain.
Exactly. It frames your subsequent action and result as much more impressive. Without outlining the obstacles, your solution might sound easy. With the obstacles, it highlights your ingenuity, your grit, your ability to deliver under pressure.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is how the sources point out that this whole persuasion game starts before you even tell your first STAR story. The interview itself is like the first test.
Absolutely. It's a microcosm of your professional performance. From the second you interact with anyone, the receptionist, the scheduler, the interviewer, you're being assessed non-verbally.
How so?
Well, think about it. Showing up 10 minutes early, that's not just polite, that's a direct demonstration of reliability.
Right.
Submitting a resume and cover letter that are perfectly formatted, 0 typos. That's instant proof of detail orientation.
Okay, and even how you speak.
Yeah. Speaking concisely, clearly, avoiding tons of filler words like and like. That shows strong communication. And then at the end, asking sharp, insightful questions that show you've really researched the company's challenges and strategy, that's powerful evidence of proactivity and curiosity.
So you're constantly sending signals. These nonverbal cues have to match the stories you tell later. It all needs to line up.
Precisely. Your actions in the interview process itself are the first layer of proof.
Okay, let's shift gears now and really dive into the core lexicon. These 28 essential attributes, we'll break them down into sort of thematic chunks so it doesn't feel like just a long list. We'll start with the real foundational traits. Module 1, reliable.
Reliability. It's the bedrock, isn't it? It's about consistently demonstrating dependability, meeting your commitments, being someone your team and boss can count on. It's foundational for trust.
How do interviewers probe for this? What kind of questions?
Often things involving juggling multiple deadlines or maybe handling unexpected workload when someone else is out. Can you describe a time you had to manage several competing deadlines? How did you ensure everything got done?
And a good STAR answer needs to show more than just hard work, right? It needs systems.
Yes. The best stories show consistency under pressure. So imagine a key teammate gets sick right before a critical project deadline. The action isn't just, I worked late, it's more systematic. Okay, first, I immediately assessed all the outstanding tasks. Then I proactively contacted the client to manage expectations about potential minor delays and secondary items. I prioritized the complex analysis only I could do, delegated some smaller administrative pieces to a junior colleague with clear instructions, and then yes, I personally put in the extra hours needed to complete the core component.
And there was
We delivered the main project successfully and on time. It reinforced my reputation as the go-to person when things get tough. You want to use words like systematized, maintained commitments under pressure, consistent track record. That's the language of reliability.
okay, solid foundation.
Yeah.
Now, Module 2, proactive. If reliability is about keeping promises, proactivity sounds like it's about creating opportunities.
Exactly. Proactivity is about taking initiative. It's anticipating needs or problems before they happen. Thinking ahead. It separates the passive reactors from the people who really drive things forward.
How do they spot this?
They'll ask things like, give me an example of a time you took action to prevent a problem from occurring rather than just fixing it afterwards.
Let me have an example for that.
Okay, imagine you notice a recurring bottleneck. The marketing team is always delayed because they request specific data briefs from your team at the very last minute. It happens every quarter.
Right.
So the proactive action is anticipation. You see the pattern, you develop a standardized template for the data they usually need, and then you proactively schedule delivery of that data 2 weeks before their usual scramble without even being asked.
Ah, getting ahead of it.
Totally. The result: quantifiable. 0 data-related delays the following quarter. Projects delivered on average 2 days earlier. And beyond the story, you can demonstrate this beyond words by actually bringing a well-thought-out 30, 60, 90-day plan to the interview, outlining how you intend to proactively add value from day one.
Nice touch. Okay, Module 3, problem solver. This has got to be one of the most common things employers look for. The source defines it in stages. Identify the problem, analyze the root cause, then develop and implement a solution.
And they test this in different ways. Behavioral questions, tell me about a problem you solve, situational questions, what would you do if, even case studies sometimes, and SOAR is often perfect here.
Let's use that inventory example again. A persistent 5% inventory discrepancy is messing up science shipments.
Right. So the obstacle is key here, remember. The error could be in receiving or fulfillment or returns. It's not obvious where the problem lies. That's the challenge.
Okay, so the action needs to be analytical.
Yes, systematic action. I initiated an audit, tracing the flow of goods using our logs. This pinpointed the issue: a procedural error in how returns were being logged back into inventory. It wasn't malicious, just inefficient. The solution wasn't just a quick fix for that batch, but implementing a new, simpler, mandatory 2-step verification process for all returns.
And the result?
Quantifiable again. Within 1 month of implementing the new process, the inventory error margin dropped from 5% to less than 0.5%. You solved the root cause.
And this brings up that other technique you mentioned, the think aloud technique.
Yeah.
Especially crucial for situational questions.
Absolutely vital. If they ask, how would you approach solving X problem? Don't just jump to an answer. Pause. And verbalize your framework.
How would that sound?
You'd say something like, that's a great question. My general approach to tackling complex problems like that involved a few key steps. First, I'd focus on gathering all the relevant data. What do we actually know for sure? Second, I'd analyze that data to understand the root cause, the why behind the symptom. I wouldn't want to just treat the symptom. Third, based on that analysis, I'd brainstorm a few potential solutions and evaluate them against key criteria like cost, feasibility, and impact before recommending or implementing one.
So you're showing your logical process before you even suggest a specific solution. Smart.
It proves your critical thinking on the spot.
Okay, great. Let's pivot now from individual tasks to collaboration. Module 4, team player. This gets thrown around a lot, often just meaning is nice.
It's much deeper than just being agreeable. It's about active collaboration, yes, but also open communication, and crucially, how you handle interpersonal challenges or conflicts constructively. Interviewers want to know how you navigate the inevitable friction.
What kind of friction?
The classic questions are about dealing with a difficult or disengaged teammate, or resolving a conflict with someone you didn't necessarily like but had to work with.
The source example is that common internal tension. Marketing wants a super user-friendly software feature, but engineering is pushing back on feasibility and cost.
Right. A classic tug of war. Your action here needs to be diplomatic. Bridge building.
So what does that look like?
It involves proactively setting up a one-on-one with the lead engineer, not in a big group meeting initially, actively listening to understand their technical constraints, really hear them out, validating their concerns. Then, adapting the original marketing idea based on that feedback. Maybe facilitating a joint brainstorming session to find a simpler, minimum viable product version that meets core needs but is feasible.
So finding common ground.
Exactly. The result. We managed to launch a simplified version of the feature on time, which actually exceeded sales targets by 20%.
Yeah.
Both teams felt heard. And notice the pronouns here use I for your specific actions. I scheduled the meeting, I listened, I adapted, but use we for the shared achievement. We launched, we exceeded targets. That balance is key for team player stories.
Good tip. Okay, moving to Module 5. Adaptable. If you're a good team player, you probably need to be adaptable too, right? Things change.
Absolutely. Adaptability is about staying calm, productive, and effective when things get thrown up in the air. Unexpected changes, shifting priorities. It shows resilience and learning agility. How fast can you pivot?
Questions probably focus on sudden changes.
Yeah, tell me about a time your priorities changed suddenly, or describe a situation where you had to completely abandon your planned approach and figure out a new way forward.
The strong STAR story here involves a pretty big disruption, like a major company-wide digital transformation, maybe moving everything from servers to the cloud, and the deadline is suddenly slashed to 2 weeks.
Oof. Okay, the action here is key. You don't complain, you adapt aggressively. You dive into online tutorials yourself, maybe create a quick start guide or cheat sheet for your colleagues to help them get up to speed faster, maybe organize informal peer-to-peer learning sessions.
So you become part of the solution fast.
Exactly. Result. Our team fully migrated by the deadline, and actually because we embraced the new system quickly, our overall efficiency improved by 15% in the following quarter. You turned a potential crisis into a performance gain.
Module 6. Detail-oriented. We touched on this with the $50 K example. But how do you consistently prove this? It's more than just catching one error.
Right. It's about meticulous execution as a habit, ensuring accuracy, catching those small things that can have big consequences. It's about thoroughness, not necessarily being a perfectionist in a negative way.
The question is usually about maintaining accuracy under pressure.
Yeah. How do you ensure accuracy when you're working against tight deadlines? The best answer is describe your system for quality control.
The scenario in the source is compiling a massive, like 50-page client proposal. Stakes are high. It needs to be perfect.
Okay. The action isn't just, I checked it carefully. It's describing your specific process. I have a personal multi-stage review process I use for critical documents. First, I do a pass specifically checking all the data points and calculations against the source data. Second, I do a separate pass focusing only on formatting, consistency, and visual presentation. Finally, I do a fresh eyes review, sometimes reading it backwards, sentence by sentence, just to catch typos or awkward phrasing.
Reading backwards? Interesting trick.
It helps. And the key moment. Using this process, I caught a subtle but critical data contradiction between a chart on page 30 and a statement on page 45 that everyone else had missed. Result. We submitted an error-free proposal, which the client later cited as a key factor in their decision. We won the multi-million-dollar project.
And again, the beyond words aspect is critical here.
Absolutely. Your resume, your cover letter, your emails, they must be flawless. That's your first demonstration of being detail-oriented.
Makes sense. Okay, rounding out this section, Module 7. Communicative. Often just thought of as being a good talker.
But it's really a two-way street. Yes, clear articulation is vital. But equally important is active listening. That means truly hearing what the other person is saying, not interrupting, asking clarifying questions.
How is this tested?
Questions might involve explaining something complex to someone non-technical, or mediating a disagreement, or delivering difficult feedback. They're assessing clarity and empathy.
The scenario provided is a tricky one. A non-technical manager completely misinterprets a complex technical report you wrote, causing unnecessary panic.
Right. The wrong action is to just publicly correct them or overwhelm them with more data. The diplomatic action demonstrates communication skill. I requested a brief, private one-on-one meeting to discuss their concerns, creating a safer space. I focused on active listening first, without interrupting, just letting them explain their interpretation. I then paraphrased their concerns back to them to make sure I understood correctly.
Showing empathy first.
Crucial. Then, instead of just restating the technical details, I used a simple analogy related to something they understood well and sketched out a quick visual aid on a whiteboard to clarify the specific complex point they'd misunderstood. I deliberately avoided jargon.
And the result?
The manager understood the actual situation, the panic subsided, and importantly, our working relationship was strengthened because they felt heard and respected. I also learned to adapt my communication style for that stakeholder going forward. Dual channel. Speaking clearly, listening actively.
All right, we're moving into the next set of traits. This block feels more focused on internal drive, structure, and ownership, starting with Module 8. Self-motivated.
Yeah, this is all about that inner engine. Can you work effectively without someone constantly looking over your shoulder? It's about initiative, managing yourself, being driven by, intrinsic things like passion for the work or personal growth, not just external rewards.
Crucial for remote work especially, I bet.
Hugely. Interviewers are trying to gauge if you're a self-starter. They'll ask things like, tell me about a time you identified something that needed doing and took ownership of it without being asked. Or describe a situation where you had to work independently with minimal supervision.
So the STAR example needs to show real autonomy, driven from within.
Exactly. The source uses an example of a long-term research project on market trends done remotely. The action isn't just, I did the research, it's, I developed my own detailed project plan with weekly milestones to ensure I stayed on track without direct oversight. Midway through, I realized my existing data analysis skills weren't quite enough to get the deep insights needed. So, proactively, I found and completed an online certification in a new advanced data analysis technique on my own time, specifically so I could apply it to this project and improve the quality.
Wow, going the extra mile.
Totally self-driven improvement. Result: I completed the report a week ahead of schedule. Because of the deeper insights from the new analysis technique, the report was adopted by senior leadership as the foundation for the company's entire next quarterly strategy. That shows real impact driven by self-motivation.
Okay, Module 9. Organized. This feels like the practical sibling of reliability. It's about the how, the systems.
Precisely. Being organized isn't just about having a tidy desk. It's about having effective systems for planning, prioritizing, and managing your time, tasks, and resources. Interviewers want to hear about your process.
So the questions probe for that system.
Yeah, exactly. Describe a system you use or have created to stay organized when dealing with multiple projects or responsibilities. They want to know how you manage complexity.
The scenario is supporting, say, 3 senior executives, all with crazy competing schedules and demands. High pressure, lots of moving parts.
Right. The action is implementing a clear system. It could be digital. I implemented a centralized Trello master board visible to all 3 directors with clear columns for to-do, in progress, and completed for their requests. For my own workflow, I rigorously used time blocking in my calendar for focused work on major tasks and applied the Eisenhower matrix, urgent, important, to triage incoming requests daily.
So specific tools and techniques.
Yes, showing you have a methodology. Result: this system reduced scheduling conflicts and missed deadlines for the directors by over 40% within the first month. And by the way, using the STAR method clearly and logically in the interview, that itself demonstrates you're organized.
Meta demonstration.
Cool.
Okay, that leads nicely into Module 10, deadline driven. This is taking organization and applying it specifically to timeliness.
Yeah, it's not just about being organized in general, but about consistently delivering on time. It involves accurate planning and scoping up front, but also crucial is proactively communicating if roadblocks appear.
The scenario is that classic pressure cooker. A report normally takes 2 weeks, but suddenly the boss needs it in 1 week.
Okay. Panic is not an option. The action needs to be immediate and strategic. First, I immediately reviewed my current workload and reprioritized everything for the week. I identified 2 data gathering tasks that could be delegated to a junior team member to free up my time. Critically, I anticipated a potential bottleneck in getting the data verified by another department, so I proactively reached out to them that day to give them a heads up and book time. I also arranged for a peer review of my analysis in parallel with finalizing the report write-up.
Lots of proactive steps there.
Absolutely. Result: I delivered the full report by the new tight deadline, and the check-in process I used with the other department actually got adopted as a best practice for future urgent requests.
Module 11, accountable. This one feels tricky. It's about owning outcomes, especially failures. The source really emphasizes this is about integrity.
It's super critical and a place where candidates can really stumble. We need to be clear about genuine accountability versus, what the source calls blame shifting disguised as accountability.
Let's hear the bad version first. What does that sound like? Because I think people do this without realizing.
It sounds something like, well, yeah, we missed the project deadline, but honestly, it was because the data team delivered their part late and my manager hadn't given clear instructions earlier on. I kind of had to take the fall for the team,
Ouch. Yeah, that sounds weak.
It's a huge red flag. It screams, I don't take responsibility. Interviewers see someone who blames external factors. True accountability means ownership. even if external factors contributed.
So the good star example, it has
Yeah.
to show real ownership.
Definitely. The scenario. You're the project manager. You personally miscalculated how long a complex technical integration would take, and because of your miscalculation, the project misses its deadline.
Okay, you messed up. What's the action?
Immediate, transparent ownership. Action. The moment I realized we wouldn't make the deadline due to my estimation error, I immediately informed both my manager and the client. I took full ownership, explained what happened without making excuses for why it happened, apologized for the impact, and laid out a clear plan to deliver within 24 hours, which involved me working through the night.
Okay, owning it directly. And the result learning.
Crucial result. We delivered the project 24 hours late, maintaining the client's trust because of the proactive communication. More importantly, I implemented a new standard practice for myself and my team. Always add a 20% buffer specifically for technical integration phases in all future project plans to prevent this type of miscalculation. That shows you didn't just fix the immediate problem, you fixed the underlying process. That's accountability.
Module 12.
Sounds
Resourceful. This feels like a blend of initiative and problem solving, especially when you don't have everything you need.
Exactly. It's about finding clever, quick, effective solutions when you're facing constraints, limited budget, tight timeline, not enough staff. Thinking outside the box.
Questions probably involve doing more with less.
Typically, yeah. Tell me about a time you had to complete a complex project with insufficient resources. The source example is great. You're tasked with creating a series of important training videos, but suddenly the entire $10,000 video production budget gets cut to zero. Vendor is out.
Yikes. Okay, how do you show resourcefulness there? What's the action?
Proactive, creative problem solving. Action. First, I researched high-quality free or low-cost video editing software options. Then, I leveraged my internal network. I knew a colleague in marketing was pretty skilled with video editing for fun. I offered to help her with some data analysis she was struggling with in exchange for her spending a few hours helping me edit the videos. We essentially bartered skills internally. I scripted and recorded the content myself using basic equipment.
Very clever. Internal bordering.
Result. We produced a series of professional-looking training videos, completely in-house, with zero direct budget spend. The videos were highly effective, actually leading to a 30% reduction in related customer support tickets over the next 6 months. That's resourcefulness in action.
Module 13. Customer-focused. This seems straightforward, but probably goes deeper than just being polite to customers.
It does. It's about genuinely prioritizing the client's or user's needs. It involves advocacy for the customer, empathy, and solving their problems in a way that builds long-term loyalty and retention.
Scenarios probably involve difficult customers or going the extra mile.
Often, yes. Handling an angry client or fixing a major issue, the STAR example. A high-value, long-term client's critical data gets corrupted due to a nasty software bug on your company's platform. They're furious, threatening to leave immediately.
High stakes. What's the customer-focused action?
It needs to show empathy and swift action. Action. I immediately got on a call with the client. First, I just listened actively to their frustration, letting them vent without getting defensive. I took personal ownership of resolving it. I worked with the tech team to deploy an emergency patch within just 2 hours to fix the bug and recover their data. Then, I proactively went to my manager and advocated for us to grant the client a 1-month service credit as a tangible apology and gesture of goodwill for the disruption they experienced.
So you fixed the problem and went above and beyond.
Right. The result demonstrates loyalty earned. The client was incredibly appreciative of the